sorry for the delay. Actually, there's a lot of noise outside, so that's why I was just changing the place. So, am I audible properly to everyone?
Yes, you're very
Yes,
good, Professor.
Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen. So, is it visible? Do I need to introduce myself, or someone has already introduced?
You can introduce yourself, Professor.
So, hi everyone, I am Kulvinder Singh Gill. So basically, I'm teaching as an assistant professor at RNB Global University, that is in Bikaner in India. So currently in this semester, I'm teaching legal theory, political theory and thought, and gender justice. So my main area of research is human rights, jurisprudence, and legal philosophy. So yeah, so today I'll be speaking on right to self-determination of religious minorities in African human rights context. So shall we start with the lecture?
Yes, you can commence, Professor.
Okay. Actually, just wait a minute, I need to, why I'm not getting my screen? So just wait a minute. Yeah, so is it visible? So basically, I will be starting with the case that came up before the Constitutional Court of South Africa in 2007. So there was a girl named, basically she was belonging to a Hindu minority, Sonali Pillai, where she was got admission in Durban Girls High School at the age of, where she means it is a basically very renowned school in the state. So far as the matter came before the court, or the bone of contention was, there is a custom in that very particular Hindu community when a girl reaches at certain age of maturity. So a girl is inserting, or means a golden stud was inserted in the nose of a girl, that shows that the girl is now a marriageable age. So when she was wearing that and joined the school objected that, okay, we are not going to allow this very particular golden stud, only you can wear the earrings, and it is going against that very dress code and conduct of the school, rules of the school. So later her mother came to the school and she explained the entire story to the members of the court, that this is the custom that has been followed by our community. So we can't waive that. So when school denied that and she was not allowed for the same, so Mrs. Pillai, her mother, filed a complaint in the Equality Court based on the discrimination, where the Equality Court ruled in favor of the school. So then the matter came before the Constitutional Court of South Africa, which was decided in 2007. The court, instead of just looking into the dress code and the rules of the school, the court considered that we need to look into why and what is the basis of that very golden stud that has been inserted in that ear of nose of a girl, because that was not a token of fashion, rather it was a customary practice that was prevalent in that very particular community for a longer time. So the court decided that this exemption, that they are not going to give the girl, is arbitrary and unreasonable and discriminatory as well. So the school need to revise its rules and regulations, and need to give a particular exemption to the people who are belonging to religious minorities or cultural minorities, so whatsoever the relation is. So if we look into, basically there are two rights are there which are in conflict, and we are talking about today. First right is right to self-determination. First right is right to self-determination. That is actually a group right. And on the other hand, there is a right to a religion. So we will be talking about this right as a community right, as a group right, where religious minorities. Yeah, is there anything, please? So where the religious minorities were actually not allowed to go for all these things. So in this case, we will decide or discuss the issue of right to self-determination that these very religious minorities and their rights so far as religious to go to worship and all these issues. Means when they can exercise their rights, and because majority of the time when we are talking about minority rights, so most of the time state is bit discriminatory to the minorities. So here I'll be in the very first part, I'll be covering right to self-determination in international context, that international instruments that are containing this very right, particular right. So if we will start with initial phase, so later I'll go for the historical background that has been actually started in 1800s only through Lenin and Woodrow Wilson. Actually, Woodrow Wilson gave 14 points before the adoption of this the Charter of the League of Nations. So there is a lot of difference in both of the contexts, in Lenin as well as in Woodrow Wilson's theory. So if we will look into the Lenin's theory, that is talking about nationalism, he's giving more emphasis on the national or the nation side. Whereas if we will look into Woodrow Wilson's principle of self-determination, he's talking about rights of the communities instead of just looking into the factor or looking into the matters of nation itself. Because basically when we are talking about rights, so obviously we need to look into all those contexts. So League of Nations was failed and due to a number of reasons. And after that, in 1945, October 24th, UN Charter United Nations came into picture. It has adopted United Nations Charter that is containing certain rules and regulations for all its organs. For so one paragraph about means contained has started we can see number of state or colonial rule. So it was actually, the matter was coming up for self-determination, statehood and all. So then in 1960, the United Nations General adopted the Declaration on Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. So if we will look into this very declaration, basically this document was the first document that has defined the right to self-determination, but it was actually more focusing on the colonial states instead of just looking into the other peoples. So in the declaration, it has been stated that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis and to end must be put to colonialism and all practices of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. So it was basically focusing on self-determination of the states of which are means coming or getting freedom from the so where they were talking about to end the discrimination. So then this declaration is also recognizing that all people have right to self-determination, and it's solemnly proclaiming that the subjection of peoples to education, domination, and exploitation, Charter of the United Nations, is an impediment to the promotion of the world peace and cooperation. So if we look into this particular statement, the proclamation, we can find that it is not only just going for the colonial states, but it is also covering means any kind of subjugation that may be coming later on through other even that state dominance may be there, subjugation may be there of minorities or any particular community. We can see the example of indigenous peoples, which they are facing a lot of discrimination, though these days we can see rights of indigenous peoples are going to be upheld by various courts and various international NGOs. And it has been started approximately 3 decades ago, when in 1981, Martinez Cobo gave its report on discrimination against that indigenous communities. So he stated that, okay, what a group constitutes and what are its elements, how the indigenous communities can be figured out, where he has also made a lot of comparative studies just to reach at a conclusion for a certain definition of indigenous communities. He has referred a number of reports related to religious minorities or racial minorities and so on. So after 1960s declaration, in 1966, the two international covenants came into picture, which were legally binding in nature. Those states who are ratifying these treaties will be abide by those two documents. So apart from these two documents, there are optional protocols are as well adopted by the Human Rights Committee and by the United Nations General Assembly for the supporting to support these very two international covenants. Just because of that, just giving or providing or confirming the rights will not be enough. When there is a violation by a state, that needs to be addressed as well. So for that particular purpose, they adopted first optional protocol to the Civil and Political Rights Covenant, that is giving right to the individual itself, that if there is a violation of individual rights, then individual right, that very particular individual who has been victimized by the state can approach to the Human Rights Committee that has been established under Article 18 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So apart from that, International Covenant on Civil, Social, Economic and Cultural Rights is also adopted during that time only. So both of these covenants are legally binding and having a lot of impact. So if we will look into the Article 1, that common Article 1, which is reproduced in verbatim in both of the covenants, so states that all people have right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. So then second paragraph states that all people may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation based on the principle of mutual benefit and international law. So in no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. So third paragraph is stating that the state parties to the present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust territories, shall promote and promote the realization of the right to self-determination and shall respect the rights in conformity with the provisions of the UN Charter. So if we look into this very particular article, that is common article 1 of these two covenants, is very specific and has even generated a lot of debate, because this is giving space to the communities to secede from their mother states as well. There are a number of cases have been decided by the ICJ as well when they were dealing with that very self-determination, but that was not related to religious aspect or cultural aspect. That was means when a state can come into picture, when a state can claim that very self-determination to secede from that very particular state with whom they have a particular kind of we can say conflict. So there is a violation, there is a subjugation, so any kind of problem may be there. So apart from that, there are in 1970s, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 2625 on the Declaration of Principles of International Law concerning friendly relations and cooperation among states in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. So this particular declaration is also promoting the right to self-determination, and it is trying to bring peace in the society so that none of the states are going to violate the rights. So then another declaration that is talking about Declaration on Social Progress and Development. So when we are talking about society, so society obviously includes religion and cultural aspects, right? So for that particular purpose, they developed this very particular declaration so that people on the right to development is there, where they have considered right to development is an inviolable right. So that is particularly if we look into Article 1 and Article 5, they are stating very exclusively that this right is inviolable and states need to progress. But on the other hand, states will have to bear in mind the rights of people should not be violated. So another human rights declaration is there, that is Vienna Declaration and Program of Action 1993. Especially in Article 1, it is containing about right to self-determination. And this particular Vienna Declaration is stating right to self-determination of right of peoples. So when they are under any kind of subordination or their rights are going to be violated or something like that. So in that case, they can, means actually this is very, this also generated a lot of debate because gender issues were also discussed in this very particular program when it was adopted. It couldn't came into because number of states haven't ratified. There are a number of states which are not ratifying cause of the reason that if they will ratify this, so then they will have to surely grant the right to indigenous communities. So if we will look into this very particular aspect of indigenous communities and rights, religious minorities' rights are always overlapping. We can see how these are overlapping because these religious minorities will be based on only and only of religion. Whereas if we look into indigenous communities, those communities are actually there are a number of aspects. Cultural aspects are there, social aspects are there, historical aspects are there, and apart from that, religious matters are also involved with that. So whenever there is a violation of any religious self-determination is coming, so in majority of the cases decided by the African Human Rights Commission or African Human Rights Court are based on the indigenous communities on. There are hardly cases which, like we have discussed in the Sonali Pillai's case, in the very first slide. So there means one particular community's person is involved whose rights have been violated. But when we are talking about right to self-determination in any sense, that may be cultural, that may be religious, that may be political, social. So in that very particular aspect, it is a group right. If we will look into that right to self-determination can be claimed by one particular individual, that is not possible. That will be only possible when we are talking about or when we are invoking a certain kind of freedom, like freedom to choose his or herself, when there is a matter of any particular expression. So in that case, individual rights can be claimed, means individual self-determination can be claimed, and that will be just related to one particular person. Then court will see that to what an extent it is possible to give that right or not. But when we are talking about one particular community or religious communities or minorities, so then it has been considered as a group right. So if we will look into Article 14 of the UDHR, United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that has been adopted in 1948. Yeah, is there anything that you want to come up with, Charles? Can you mute yourself, Charles? So basically, if we look into Article 18 of UDHR, Universal Declaration, that was adopted in 1948. It is not legally binding, but morally it has been.
Professor, may you unmute yourself, please? Just try to unmute yourself.
Sorry. So when did it happen that okay, I am mute? Actually, I was unmute and someone might have done that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it may be by mistake. So I think you guys might have got Article 27 and UN Declaration 1981 as well. So then we can say in 1992, United Nations General Assembly adopted one more declaration, that is UN Declaration on Persons Belonging to National, Religious and Linguistic Minorities. So we will look into all these very human rights treaties. These are protecting right to freedom of religion as an individual right, as well as we can see these are protecting group rights too, especially whenever courts are interpreting right to freedom of religion of any community or of any group, they are invoking Article 27 of this very particular ICCPR. So if we look into self-determination, self-determination is basically consisting of two aspects. It is containing two aspects: external self-determination, that is talking about secession. For example, if one state is, you can take an example of Sudan, and there are a number of other countries which have been, seceded from their mother countries or from other countries. So external self-determination is talking about or means giving you rights or giving right to the people that you can secede from that very particular state, disintegrate from that state and create a new state. So then second aspect is internal self-determination. Actually, when we are talking about religious or cultural or indigenous communities, so they are only and only allowed to go for internal self-determination. You will be under the state only, state will be sovereign, but so far as your internal matters are concerned, you will have to go for determining your cultural rights, your religious rights, your other rights, and you can exercise your other things as well. It is about yeah, sorry. So internal self-determination contains about or talks about, we can say, rights of the community, of the people that will be involving a particular community, or means so where they can exercise their rights. So if we will look into these characteristics of self-determination, James Anaya, who is a person who has done a lot of studies in indigenous communities, have identified there are 5 characteristics of self-determination. These are freedom from discrimination, respect for cultural integrity, because whenever indigenous communities are invoking this thing, so they are invoking on the basis of cultural integrity, or means their social welfare and development, then their lands and natural resources are there, and self-government. So first 3 conditions are pretty fine, means if we look into freedom from discrimination, respect for cultural integrity, and social welfare and development. So these 3 aspects are pretty fine. So far as even states will be okay that we are ready, we won't be discriminating. Even we can look into the constitution of all the states, they are containing non-discrimination articles or provisions in their constitution. They will be giving rights as well to the communities that okay, you can go for this particular right, means their cultural rights will be protected. There will be provisions for social welfare of all the communities, and state will be striving to promote the welfare as well as means to make the all communities developed. But last 2 characteristics, if we will look into land and natural resources and self-government. These are very problematic when states are coming up with. Like we can see indigenous communities and are always saying that, okay, they have, very particular attachment with their lands and natural resources. Even their livelihood is also related to those things only. In some communities, it has become, means their living sources or their livelihood is also, kind of sacred. So the kind of, for example, there are indigenous communities which are doing fishing and all. So those are not only cultural practices, but also have been considered as, sacred right as well. So means whenever they are going to fish for the first time in that very particular season, so they are worshipping, they are considering as a gift of God. They celebrate that as a religious ceremony and all. So then self-government is there. Self-government that, okay, they will be regulating their internal matters. For example, if there is a violation of their community rule, so instead of going to the state or something, then they would like to solve the matters of their own. They will be determining, okay, how to trade off with the things that are, means how to survive. So instead, sometimes there are communities which are not going for money and all, they are just exchanging the things. So they want that, okay, all these things should be regulated according to their customs only, instead of just going for something different. So so far as group is concerned, group rights are concerned, then matter comes or question comes, what a group is consisting of. So there are few criteria which have been given by number of thinkers, as well as by especially if we will look into Martinez Cobo's report that has been published in 1981 on discrimination against indigenous communities. So he has started out various criteria that will determine the nature of a group. The first criteria or first thing is there, that is self-identification. Even self-identification has been proposed by James, quoted by James Anaya, as proposed by Martinez Cobo in his report. And secondly, this has been even United Nations Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination stated that whenever individuals are identifying themselves as a members of any ethnic group or any religious group or any kind of group, so it will be self-identified. They will identify themselves that we are belonging to this group. So secondly, their historical consideration is there, means their ancestral properties, ancestral roots will be considered, their historical issues will be considered, for how long they are there, what is the relation between that very particular land and all. So then third element is that community survival. When we are talking about these groups, they are not just considering that our historical aspect, historical perspective only, but rather it will be including that, okay, distinct culture as well. Because when we are talking about any culture, they would have particular the domain of culture. Then these cultural and religious practices are somehow determining their right to life, their right to livelihood as well. So what they will be doing means their community survival will be based on that. For example, if you are saying that, okay, you won't be able to do a certain practice that is cultural or religious, then obviously that will be violating their culture. Their means identity. It will be to identity, maybe cultural, maybe religious, or any kind of identity. Then next, if we will look into the minority issues so far as cultural, religious are concerned, so the League of Nations established 2 commissions to deal with minority rights and self-determination when the matters came into before. One case was Islands case is there, that is of 1900, which was decided by the International Commission of Jurists, where they said that the common object between self-determination, that is a right of peoples to and from their own to form their own state, and secondly, the protection of minorities. So when they are talking about this very thing, right to self-determination, when especially we are talking about forming a new state that will be belonging to the people, that they can make a new state. But on the other hand, this has been also confirmed that so far as minorities are concerned, these minorities may be social, ethnical, or religious communities, or any minority, they can seek protection or respect by the state on, but they cannot ask that, okay, we want to secede from that very particular state. So their rights will be protected, their rights will be respected, but they can't invoke principle of self-determination or secession. So then another case was their rights of minorities in Upper Silesia, that is minority schools cases there, that was decided by the Permanent Court of International Justice. So in 1928, they have also authorized or means endorsed the same thing, that minorities are allowed to go for internal matters only. They can seek respect and protection of their rights, but they cannot secede from that very particular state. So now I'll move to rights of right to religious determination under African human rights system. Means to what an extent this very African Charter on Human Rights and People's Rights is protecting the rights of religious minorities. So this was adopted in 1981, and if we will look into provisions that are pretty fair and very elaborative in itself. So if we, Article 2 is containing the non-discrimination clause, that is stating that states are not allowed to discriminate against any kind of person. That person may be belonging to any race, ethnic group, color, sex, language, religion, political, or any other opinion, even national, social origin. So means when they are talking about this thing, so they are protecting that states will not be discriminating against their citizens or the persons of any community. So then Article 8 is protecting the right to freedom of religion. It states that freedom of conscience, freedom of profession, and free practice of religion shall be guaranteed. Though this right has been enshrined in this very particular treaty as a individual right, but on the other hand, this is means also considering the group rights, because whenever we are talking about religious minorities or minorities, so they will be representing in the group itself. So this states no one may, subject to law and order, be submitted to measures to restrict exercise of these freedoms. So though there will be some restrictions as well, but those restrictions will not be arbitrary. Those will be for the welfare of public health, morality in the sense that, okay, they will be considering if I will particularly give example of Indian context. So they mentioned right to freedom of religion is subject to public order, health, and morality. Their morality means does not mean that, okay, social morality means society will be regulated. Rather, they have considered that constitutional morality will be there. So courts will be interpreting the things in morality in the sense of human rights principles, instead of invoking it as a social morality or means rules constructed by the mob. So Article 20 is protecting right to self-determination. So these are somehow reproducing the human rights treaties, especially ICCPR Article 1. So, but on the other hand, if we will look into the second paragraph, that is talking about, means first paragraph is obviously talking about all people shall have the right to existence. So they shall have the unquestionable and inalienable right to self-determination. So if we will look into that, that very international human rights treaty, they are giving rights, but here they have considered it as an inalienable as well as unquestionable right that will be protected by the states. that may be related to some communities, that may be related to some states. Though individual rights are protected, but on the other hand, cultural, religious, ethnic minorities will be able to get this right. But this will be actually specifically, if we will look into that, this is an internal aspect. They are not going to say that, okay, you can form a new state. That is not possible. Means state will be respecting your rights. State will be protecting your religion, your culture, your any kind of identity. So they've also considered the colonized and oppressed peoples as well. Means they needs to be free from the bonds of domination by resorting to any means recognized by the international community. So another aspect is they have considered that all people shall have right to the assistance of state parties to the present charter in their liberation struggle against the foreign domination. So it is saying that, okay, if there is any state who is still under domination, under some foreign rule or subjugation, so other states in this very particular area in the African continent will be assisting to liberate from that very foreign domination. So Article 21 is actually protecting right to self-determination and sovereignty over wealth and natural resources of the people. So now I'll move to some case laws that have been decided by African Court of Human Rights. Though some matters came before the African Commission of Human Rights. So am I audible to everyone clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if the first case that I will be discussing here, that is Center for Minority Rights Development, that is Kenyan Center or NGO. Another NGO is there, Minority Rights Group International, on behalf of endorses Welfare Council, that is a community welfare council versus Kenya. And that this case was decided in 2010. So if we look into the facts, means the complainants alleged that the government has violated their right to freedom of religion under Article 8. How this has been violated means even including the constitutional principles and international principles by removing the very particular community from their ancestral lands around the Lake Bogoria area of the Baringo and Koibektek. I'm so sorry, there may be some pronunciation issues when I'm pronouncing the particular names of that very spaces or communities. So I'm sorry for the same. So they said that, okay, when these people were, expelled, they were removed from that very particular land. So they were not consulted before, evacuation and before expelling them. So even they were not consulted, there were no adequate or effective compensation was given to them. So means they were forcibly removed with arbitrary compensation. So with arbitrary decisions only. So they stated that even they stated that means there are places which are historical sites where they are offering, their prayers. They are means certain rituals are there they need to perform on that very particular land. So and cultural ceremonies around the lake Bogoria. So when these sites were, means they were doing their worships or all the cultural ceremonies weekly or monthly, that may be depending on the number of people whenever they are doing. So even the cultural festivals are there that are related to that very particular region. So then, but on the other hand, if we look into the government stated that means the eviction actually was justified one. They said, we consulted these people, we consulted this very particular community endorses, and it was means subject to administrative procedures. We followed very fair procedures. But when matter came to the commission said that, okay, there is an infringement of their right to freedom of religion. Because when we are looking about talking about these very indigenous communities or religious communities, so certain spaces, their lands, are very sacred to them. If any kind of problem is going to happen, or any kind of interference is going to happen in that very particular land, so that may destroy the kind of space, or that kind of sacredness of that very place or of the land. So this community is not only means saying that, okay, we are living there, rather that very land is very sacred to them. Secondly, their livelihood is also related to that on, means they are tilling those lands and all these things. So the commission said the state has violated, Kenya has violated their right to freedom of religion, which is inherent right and that cannot be violated, because there can be no derogation. State cannot take any kind of measures which will go against the fundamental rights of the people. So states cannot take recourse to the limitation clauses of the African Charter. So another case that was decided by the commission, that was Amnesty International and others versus Sudan. So in this case, complaints said that, means there was a number of violations occurred in various parts of Sudan between 1989 to 1993. So where they said that 4 NGOs actually came up, where they alleged that Sudanese government involved the extrajudicial killings, summary executions are there, torture, discrimination on the basis of religion is there. So though a number of issues were there, but we will be just focusing on the right to freedom of religion as dealt by the court in that particular paragraph in 9. So this case means it was alleged in that case that Christians and other non-Muslims were subjected to expulsion, arbitrary arrests, and detention because of their religious, orientation, just because of their communities, just because of their religion. So their churches were closed. People, religious leaders were, prevented from getting food with the aim of converting them into Islam. So in addition to this, the court, means the domestic court of Sudan, entertained their case based on the Sharia law, which is not subscribed by those victims. So when, means on the other hand, the government realized that Sudan has guaranteed the right to freedom of faith and worship in its country. Means when one state or one country is giving or guaranteeing certain rights to its individuals, to its citizens, so it shouldn't go against those very principles which are required to be followed by the people. Even state needs to protect the rights of individuals, because these states are saying of their own that, okay, we are giving you this right. So, but when the matter came to the commission, so they consider Article 8 as well as Article 2. Article 8 is talking about right to freedom of religion, and Article 2 is talking about discrimination. So here they said there was a discrimination on the basis of religion, whereas because Article 2 is openly stating that states cannot discriminate against on such and such grounds, and religion is one of those grounds. So the court stated that there is no controversy as a Sharia being based upon the interpretation of Muslim religion, but when applying Sharias, the tribunal in Sudan must do so in accordance with the other obligations undertaken by the state of Sudan. So whenever they are going for these things, when they are going to interpret these very Sharia laws, so tribunals or domestic courts must bear in mind that these must be able to fulfill the obligations arising under international as well as in the national standards. So they must be dealing with these issues fairly. Apart from that, commission said, emphasized rather, I would say, that Sharia law being based on a religious belief should not be applied to those who do not adhere to that very particular religion. So tribunals should be very, secular when they are applying the laws. They should interpreting the texts just in the favor of religious texts instead of going to the religion one. So, the commission said that, okay, Sudan has violated Article 8 and the justifications they have rendered are not, considerable and reasonable. The another case that was came before the court was Prince versus South Africa, where in this case, actually, Mr. Gareth Enver, that is a prince, was denied of access to the bar in South Africa due to his religious use of, because he was actually a member of Rastafari community, where this was used as a practice, a religious practice, instead of as a drug. So his claim was that prohibition of cannabis uses for ritual purposes is amounting to, disproportionate violation of his right to freedom of religion. So in addition to this, he said, it means he alleged that the prohibition of use of marijuana is an affront to his dignity, because when we are invoking right to freedom of religion, it is not just a right, rather we can say it is a matter of dignity as well for a particular individual. Because when we are talking about fundamental rights and inherent rights, the right to dignity is that very foremost and the first right that needs to be protected. If the right to dignity is not there, the states are not going for that, then other rights you are giving to its citizens will be redundant on. So court said, means even the South Africa court, when matter came to the constitutional court, they said that, okay, state is pretty fine, they can regulate these very drugs, and he was prohibited. And the constitutional court rendered decision in favor of South Africa instead of Prince. So, but then he went to the African Human Rights Court, where the court said that whenever we are dealing with the kind of human rights issue, we should not just look into one particular individual. We need to look into certain customs, practices that are part and parcel of that very particular religion. If people are doing something under the faith, under the religious domain, that is actually essential practice of that very religion, that cannot be considered as a prohibited practice. If you are going to prohibit that very practice, then obviously you are violating the right to freedom of religion of that very particular community. So the commission affirmed that very thing, but on the other hand, they go 37. Yes, please. You are not audible, Philip. Your voice is not audible. Can you can anyone speak on behalf of, and you can write in the chat box. I'm so sorry, you're not audible. So just I will be okay. You might be asking to wind up. Is it there? Philip? Philip? Okay, so another case, I'll be just finishing within few minutes. So another case that was decided in 2017, this is the last case that I'll be just winding up the discussion. So it was the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights versus Kenya that was decided in 2017 by the Human Rights Court. So actually in 2009, October, the Kenyan Forestry Services issued an eviction notice requiring the Ogiek community people, dwelling community people, Okay, so I'll be winding up within 10 minutes. So they were living in the forests, they were marginalized indigenous peoples. So they were forced to actually leave the Mao forest within 30 days. So actually in November 2009, certain 3 or 4 NGOs came together and they argued that means that eviction is violating Article 14, that is including right to property, freedom of discrimination, to Article 2, and then Article 4, right to life, because, and then freedom of religion under Article 8, right to culture, and freely dispose of their wealth and natural sources, and 22 article right to development. So if we look into all these very aspects, means these are intertwined. It's not like that, okay, if somebody's life is in threat, then other rights are of no use. So we need to look into that, okay, all these rights are interconnected, especially when we are talking about communities, because all the rights are flowing from their identity. These foresters were their livelihood, so they were forced to evict, means leave that very particular place. So then in 2009 October, means when the eviction notice came, so they approached to the various courts, but the courts did not hear them. So finally the matter came before the Human Rights Court. After 8 years long process, court issued a judgment that was means actually upholding the land related rights of the Ogiek community, and finding means there were a number of violations except right to life. But here the court went wrong as well, because when somebody's right to livelihood has been taken away, then how the people will live properly? Then there will be number of health issues, then number of other issues will be coming up that needs to be addressed. So means right to life is the basic right that needs to be protected first, then other rights come later. If you're protecting just right to religion, right to culture, but if you're not protecting the right to life, that may be wrong. So here they invoked, 2007 Declaration of Indigenous Peoples, and then they said, means these foresters are constituting an interference, means actually these foresters were sacred to these very Ogiek people. So they were giving, very distinct ties between the land and their cultural practices, their religion as well. So the court concluded that so far as it had already determined the Ogiek's rights to their ancestral land, so and that those rights have been violated, so eviction clearly violated the right to access and occupy the land. And more than that, means it is violating their right to religion as well. So if we will look into the summary of these very cases, so whenever they are talking about right to culture, right to life, right to food, especially for the religious communities as well as for the indigenous communities, because their rights are overlapping, and whenever courts are going to decide cases for religious minorities, so they always invoke the rights cases decided for the indigenous communities. So courts need to and states need to protect their rights, means to the religious communities, that is a sacred and inherent rights. Yes, please. Yes, Moses, you raised your hand, please. Yeah, thank you. So this was there. Any questions regarding the same? Yes, please. Thank you. So any questions from anyone who is actually managing this very, hosting this very, Philip? Yeah, please. Anyone who wants to come up with something? Who have asked me questions? Philip. So do you see the right to self-determination in terms of religious rights being pursued individually without enforcing other rights? See, Philip, there are actually, I've already told you, there are two aspects. One is external and internal. So far as external right is concerned, that means a secession from that very particular state. But so far as internal aspect is concerned, so since right to self-determination is an indigenous group right, so it can be actually dealt by whenever they will be invoking this very particular aspect. So they will be going for the same. Means it will be realized as a group right instead of individual rights. Though individuals are exercise their religious freedom, because basically international rights, national rights treaty, so even in the constitution actually prima facie protecting individual rights, right to freedom of religion. But when it comes to a group right, then obviously they have right to go for self-determination. They will be looking into the matters of related to religion instead of means where those states can impose certain restrictions, but those arbitrary in nature. Those will be in accordance with the constitutional or international human rights principles. So yeah, anyone else having question? Hope this might be satisfactory, Philip. Yeah, please, Moses. Yeah, come ahead, please. Yes, you can speak, please. Yes, please, you can go ahead, please, Moses. You have raised your hands. So any other question?
Handsome. Okay. I think you might be having network problems. I think I have another question. If
you can drop it. Philip, you are not audible actually properly. Means your voice is breaking.
am I audible now?
You are audible. Your voice is not proper. It's cracking somewhere. Means there is no harmonization in your voice. Means in your question. So better, yeah. Please speak. Hope it will work.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please, Moses.
Yeah, I was just having a problem of unmuting my microphone, but now it's okay. It's done. I have a question regarding on the protection of religious rights.
Yeah.
There are some cases when you find some religious practices are against public order.
Okay.
Then what will happen to the state when the religious practices are against the public order? Is there any provision in the charter on that? Thank you.
See, Moses, so far as violating the public order or means order of the government, hope you're asking in that sense. So if there is a government order for evicting the people, as we have discussed in a number of cases that there was eviction from particular land. So in that case, firstly, state needs to consult the people. If the people have not been consulted properly, then they can challenge that very particular order as well as eviction. Then people or that very particular community have right to go against that very state itself, because state is providing you or guaranteeing you the right to freedom of religion, right to freedom of culture, and all these rights are intertwined, means these cannot be disintegrated. So if there is any particular government order that is going to take away these inherent rights or these very inalienable rights, so then the state order can be challenged. And so far as charter is concerned, charter is protecting the rights of the people. It is not protecting the rights of the government. Governments or the states are required to protect and respect the rights of individuals, of the communities, so that a peaceful society can be established. Yes, please. Hope it is a satisfactory one. Yes, Moses. Yes, Philip, please.
Okay, so
Your voice is
as general
not
knowledge that,
clear. Your voice is not clear, Philip.
let me just
Maybe
check in
there is a
the
recording
chat. I
on
think
your.
I think it'll be better.
So you can ask your question in the chat box if there is any, because your voice is not proper, is not audible to me. So I can answer the same. Yeah, so anyone, please. Thank you, James. So any other question or any other query that you want to come up with? Anyone, please? So otherwise you can wind up the lecture. Can anyone else speak on behalf of Philip, because his voice is not clear? There may be some network issue. So if anyone else is there who can come up and wind up. Yeah, I will release. Don't worry about that. Really. So any question from anyone? Yes, please. Are there any other way of enforcing who is host? Please unmute host. I think Philip is hosting this meeting, this very particular with this very particular icon. African Law Students Association might be hosting the meeting. So what was the question? Just let me read and answer the same. Are they okay? Is there any other way of enforcing religious rights in the internal jurisdiction apart from invoking anti-discrimination provisions? Okay, so Philip, yeah, you are asking a very right question though. But whenever we are talking about non-discrimination, why certain things come up front. For example, if there is any cultural, religious, ethnic or any other minority is there, if the rights are going to be violated, and if there is a denial to certain rights, obviously there will be some kind of discrimination, and there will be some kind of problem that will be going to be introduced, that okay, this is the issue, we are going to deny this right on this and this basis. So whenever rights are going to be, decided or protected internally, so non-discrimination principle will be invoked. I don't think so there will be any other way out. Especially when the matter is related to some religion, culture, or any kind of, particular, that may be ethnic, that may be indigenous community. So whenever there is a violation of any right, so then there will be invocation of right to non-discrimination. Yeah. Yes, Philip, any other question from your side or from anyone else? You are not audible, Philip. Can you please, can someone else go on behalf of that? If you really need to, yeah, please. Can you write in the chat box, Philip, so I can understand what are you saying? You are not audible. Can anyone please? Philip, you are not audible properly because your voice is not clear. Can anyone else speak on behalf of Charles? Can you, or anyone else? Yes, please, anyone? I think you guys should start your cameras so I can see everyone as well, that I'm not alone here. Yeah, thank you, Charles. And what about others? Please switch on your cameras. We have done with the lecture. Yeah, anyone, please, anything that you want to come up with? Hello, Charles. Okay, so just read the chat box and reply to the person. James, please, can you come ahead? And yes, James. James, please come ahead and wind up the discussion. Please, anyone, so we can wind up the discussion. In this way, we will be nowhere. So actually it requires the wind up. Yeah, Charles, can you come up? Can you come ahead and wind up the discussion? If no one has questions, no one has queries. Please, anyone come ahead and wind up the discussion. So any question? So otherwise I can leave the meeting. So anyone can come up, please. Moses, can you come ahead? Or Charles?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I think we have to wind up the lecture in absence of any question. We thank you, Prof, for being with us. We really appreciate, and we expect you to have another lecture from you. So please prepare for the next lecture. We really appreciate everything. We appreciate everybody that come
Yeah,
along.
sure.
We really
Sure,
appreciate
I'll
all
come
of
up
them that
with-
have.
Sure, I'll come up with another lecture in the next few days.
Okay, no problem. If you have any lecture, you have to contact our head of academic sector, Chinyere Onyeke, who is in charge of it. So she has to reschedule you for another lecture. So we really appreciate. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone, being here and having patience to listen me. Hope you guys enjoyed this lecture. So thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to leave the meeting now. Thank you. All the best.